I don't always notice my thoughts early. I'm getting better at it, but I don't catch them every time. Where it still shows up the fastest for me is in traffic. Where my focus is already locked in on something, any interruption to that line of thinking makes it hard to pause, hard not to respond immediately. I've always been a high-energy person, a little restless, but locked in. So when something pulls me out of that focus, especially something that feels unnecessary, like someone driving too slow, or interrupting me mid-thought, I can feel the reaction rise before I even touch it. What's strange is that the things that set me off now aren't big. They don't threaten my life. They don't carry any real weight. They're small interruptions, but they still hit the same system. When it happens now, I don't explode the way I used to, but I do sit with it, sometimes for hours, sometimes days, depending on how far I went. I'm still in control, but there's something in me that still wants to argue, still wants to prove, still wants to win. Now I'm just a better debater, sometimes with other people, sometimes with myself. The difference is that I walk away sooner. Not because I've resolved it, but because I haven't. Everyone has a right to their own thoughts, their own ideas, and there's nothing out there proving I'm right anyway. So most of the time, I've found it's better to drop it and leave it. Rewiring something that's been in place for decades takes patience, then more patience, and when you think you've run out, even more. It's exhausting. Because you're not just changing behavior. You're watching a part of you that still wants to exist slowly lose its grip. You feel it resist. You feel it reach for old ground, and you have to let it drown anyway. You have to recognize that this part of you was built to protect something, but no longer fits who you're becoming. It's like shedding a snake's skin. When a snake is almost done molting, it goes temporarily blind. That moment is dangerous. You don't see clearly. You don't feel stable. All you can do is trust the process and keep moving forward until the skin finally comes off. Awareness works the same way. Sometimes it's liberating. Other times it's crippling. Crippling because you start noticing details you spent a lifetime avoiding. Things that tighten your chest, things that make you uncomfortable, things that force you to question who you are and where you're actually headed. Liberating, because without facing those things, you stay trapped in surface-level satisfaction. Awareness gives you the chance to build a life that's actually yours, guided by your own thoughts, not borrowed ones. I've forgiven myself for a lot over the years, but writing Wednesday's episode did something I'd never experienced before. When I wrote about the scared little boy I used to be, I didn't just think about him. I saw him in that room. The air was still, heavy. He was crouched in the corner, small, folded in on himself, crying in a way that didn't make sound anymore. Pure fear. The kind that doesn't ask questions. I felt it in my body, in my chest, in my throat. And in my mind, I walked into that room. The only light was coming from outside, thin, distant, but real. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there with him for a minute. Then I spoke. I told him it was okay, that there was no one left to hurt him, that we had grown far beyond that space. I told him he didn't have to stay there anymore, that he was safe now, that he could come out. He looked up. The crying stopped. His body loosened. He stood slowly, and we embraced. Not rushed, not dramatic, just real. Then he walked out into the light to go play. I stayed behind for a moment. I flipped on the light in the room. It was plain, white, empty. No shadows, no corners. I closed the door. Later that day, I checked a few times just to see if he was still there. He wasn't. And that was the end of that room. That experience, being willing to go there honestly, that's what self-trust feels like to me. Putting this out publicly isn't easy. But I know that there's at least one person listening who will recognize that room, who felt their body tense when I describe it, and who felt something soften when the door closed. We share more in this life than we like to admit. We're all moving through this together, whether we want to be or not. Everyone wants the world to be better. So eventually, we have to start with ourselves. Awareness doesn't always give you control, but it does give you direction. I still deal with this. I just see it more clearly now. And sometimes the work is letting go.